Welcome to the Lion Show. I'm your host, your favorite business coach, Robert Lyon. Today, we have the great pleasure of talking to the firewood motivational guy. He's just Steve Gamlin. He did comedy for 7 years. He's done like 30 years in personal development. He's been an incredible voice on lots of radio stations all over the place. And Steve, I'm just really happy to have you on today. Why don't you introduce yourself and just tell everybody who you are and kind of what you're all about.
Thank you, Robert. Happy to be here on the show. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it right there. I'm a former radio personality, former stand-up comedian. I've been a speaker now for about 17 years, focusing on a blend of motivation, humor, and visualization, and have been on a personal development journey for about 30 years. Like most people my age, I'm in my early 50s. My first dose of personal development was like 2 a.m, a Tony Robbins Personal Power 2 infomercial, and I think I shelled out $180 and I bought the cassettes of that. So I've been on the journey for a long time and decided when I crashed and burned my life in the early 2000s that I probably had some lessons to share, and I've been a speaker ever since.
Well, I think you nailed it saying it's a personal development journey. You know, it's never really gets over and you can kind of just keep stacking the chips. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is stand-up comedy. So I used to have this old little dive bar where I lived, and like every Wednesday I'd go and just get drunk and try and make people laugh. And it was just one of the best times of my life when I lived in this little crappy apartment. So what was your stand-up comedy? Obviously much better than mine, but how did that start and what did that look like?
Well, there's no more video evidence of mine. I scrubbed it off YouTube, so I'm not going to say if mine was better or not.
That's funny.
It's funny. I always wanted to do comedy. I was always fascinated by stand-up comedians who could get up there and not just be funny, which I always thought was all it took, but to actually craft storytelling, which is kind of the approach that I took. It wasn't one-liners. It wasn't, just traditional jokes, but to get up there and craft it and to then understand that has everything to do with the timing, the mental picture that you paint with your words, the pauses, the facial expressions, the body, everything. I started to really study that. And even though I never really got much beyond like a middle act, I was never a headliner. I so appreciated the people who were successful at it, and not just the famous people at a famous level, but I live an hour north of Boston. So I'd get out of Boston and I'd be this, if you show up and buy $80 worth of food, they'll give you 3 minutes on stage sort of thing. So I'd get my 3 minutes over with, give the audience a break, and then study the headliners. And what I found out was I started stand up and speaking right around the same time. They fed off each other really, really well, and doing each one made the other one better. So when I wrapped up after 7 years of comedy, I just took all the clean material and the approach and brought it into speaking, and it's made such a difference. It got me hired more by being able to be funny while delivering a message.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I've studied like Andrew Carnegie's speaking thing, and he always says it's good to be funny. It's good to open up with a joke, because once you kind of get everybody on that same frequency of, oh, this guy's he's kind of funny, he's interesting, and then you deliver a very powerful message, it always kind of comes through pretty well. So would you do it full time?
Just kind of you mean the comedy back in the day? Just wherever I could pick up a gig here and there. We hopped the train a couple times in Boston and went to New York City, did some clubs there.
Nice.
One night wearing a Red Sox jersey, which I didn't do on purpose. I was comedian number 32 out of 34 at a comedy club in New York. And I got up there and the audience was tired, drunk, and mad at the guy who was on before me because he was a jerk.
Yeah.
And I get up there and somebody goes, "Hey, Boston." And I look down and I go, "Oh man." I mean, I put on what I always wore in Boston and hopped the train in Boston and went to New York City. But I got myself out of it. I just came out of, comedy for a second and said, "Hey, look, you know what? I put this on in Boston earlier today. All the respect in the world for your Yankees." Derek Jeter could have played alongside Ruth and DiMaggio. And they were cool with me after that. And they were really generous with their laughter.
Nice. And then obviously that slowly fed into your personal development journey. So take us on that little roller coaster. How did that kind of come to fruition for you?
Yeah, it was something I'd wanted to do since I was a kid. And I never had the guts or even knew how to approach being a stand-up comedian. I just thought it just happened one day. You either get discovered or you happen to be somewhere and somebody said, "Hey, this guy's funny, put him up there." And there was an afternoon in August of 2003. In a short window of time, I'd walked away from a 10-year radio career, went through a divorce, and was $62,000 in debt at age 35. So I pretty much just crashed and burned everything. And in August of 03, I had $3 left in my pocket one day, and I was out hitting golf balls at a local driving range, and I'm way to the far tee box because I'm the worst golfer in the world. So I was underneath power lines, and a thunderstorm came ripping through, and everybody but me ran away. And I'm thinking, I got nothing to lose, and I just held the club up. I'm like, go ahead, just take me out. So I just getting out frustration. I'm just sitting there in a thunderstorm, barefoot in the wet grass, just whacking the crap out of a bucket of golf balls. And then I saw the buckets that two other people had left behind when they bailed from the storm, and I hit theirs. So after about an hour, my arms are dead. I get out to my car and the sun comes out, and I just started laughing because I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. Just looked up and I just thought, well played.
Yeah.
So the next day I was on the phone with my brand new life coach. I just started working with him. And he says, so how was your week? I said, put down your pen and listen to this. And I told the story of the thunderstorm and the golf balls and daring it to hit me and all that. And I just tried to make it funny. And he's laughing on the other end of the phone. He says, I got two questions for you. Are you this open and honest about your life with everybody, even strangers? And I said, yeah. I said, it's mostly self-deprecating, but yeah, I guess there's a lesson in there somewhere and some humor. He says, you ever thought of being a motivational speaker or a stand-up comedian? I really think you would enjoy both. And I said, yeah, actually both I wanted to do for a long time, but I don't even know what the first step would be. He had a brochure on his desk from a local community college with a class that said Intro to Stand-Up Comedy. I never even knew there was such a thing. And a couple of weeks later, I was there in the front row with my notebook and started doing comedy. And a few weeks later, I joined Toastmasters and started to learn the basics of how to construct stories and use your facial expressions and your voice. And because of that one conversation after a day of hitting golf balls, I got both my dreams. They started at the same time.
Yeah, it's always kind of has to like take you on a roller coaster where like everything has to go to complete shit, and then like you can kind of like let go, and then you're like, oh, maybe it'll be all right, and then you can kind of ride back out of it, and usually you, you come out the other side better than you were before. But nobody likes to go through the hard times. It's always a pain in the ass, and life will definitely kick you when you're down and doesn't give up sometimes. But I love that. That's just wonderful. So have you done some motivational speaking around Boston, or what's that been like?
Oh gosh, I've been in at both ends of the country doing speaking. Yeah, I've been all over New England. I've actually one of my biggest and favorite events ever was out in your neck of the woods. A couple of years ago, I was the keynote speaker in Phoenix for the Brain Injury Alliance of Arizona for about 500 people, half of whom had traumatic brain injuries. They were survivors and their caregivers. And they invited me in to give a back to basics, positivity, find and create the good every day. Just a nice, simple, but fun, heartfelt message. And they were amazing. And it's one that when I'm 90 years old on my front porch, I'm going to think of and smile. They were wonderful. So I've been here and there, all kind of all over the place speaking. And of course, now doing it virtually, but now I get to have an audience all over the world and dress nicely from the waist up.
Yep. You be in your boxers, but have a nice shirt on.
I always wear pants in case I stand up. So
that's always good. So, and what's been the radio industry? How's that been to you?
Radio was something I wanted to do since I was about 9 years old. There was a TV show in the 70s called WKRP in Cincinnati. Yeah. And I was about 9 years old when it first came on. And I saw this guy named Dr. Johnny Fever. He wore sunglasses indoors, which I just thought was so cool. And he wore jeans and t-shirts, had scraggly hair, scruffy beard, and he played records and got paid for it. And even at that age, I thought, I want to do that someday. And, parenting and reality step in, get a good job with a good company, a good education, great benefits, and put your head down for 40 years and retire with benefits, which was not part of my plan. My sister has that mindset. She has a great job and makes really good money. She's extremely smart. I followed the I want to be Dr. Johnny Fever path. So I barely graduated college when I was 22. One of my dad's favorite jokes ever is I used to say I graduated summa cum this close. 62 one thousandths of a point from not graduating, but I wanted to be on the radio. And I had a friend who kept asking me, why didn't you ever do it? You just blew all this money on 4 years of college that you're not using. You're broke and depressed on your grandfather's couch. So I called up a local radio station and said, how do I get into radio? They told me about a school near Boston. So I bummed $4,000 off my grandfather, went to school summer 92, got out. And a few weeks later, I got an internship at a radio station that we'd grown up listening to. And I drove to my friend's house and I told him, and he was so happy and so proud. And, you get the told you so speech. Yeah. He passed away 3 weeks later.
Oh,
He had cancer, and it just came back real quick, a third time, and got him. But he got to see me get my foot in the door for something. He kicked me in the butt towards that door
yeah.
to do. So at the end of 10 years of radio, I was just fried in every way, and I was falling apart mentally, emotionally, physically. I just worked too many hours in 10 years.
Wow.
And it made me think that, somebody believed in me when I didn't, and I got this amazing career out of it. So when I became a speaker, that was still kind of in my head. And I said, that's who I want to be for other people.
Uh-huh.
That person sitting way in the back at a big conference who might have sat in the car crying or afraid to even come in, like they didn't belong or were worthy of it. And they don't even look at me. They don't take notes. They just sit there in the dark. And that's the person I work hardest to reach every time, because I want to do for them what my friend did for me. And I've heard from those people sometimes, even years later. And man, some of the testimonials made my mom cry. Somebody that wrote something, I was in the shadows and this and that, and I heard Steve, and that one made my mom cry. So that's the biggest reason why I do what I do. And it all launched out of the ashes of radio, but not like a phoenix. You were talking about the ashes, like you rise up majestic and there's the music, and like in the movies,
Well, that's how I did
and
it.
the angels.
No.
Yeah, man, my phoenix rides a pogo stick, because I've been back in the ashes a couple times.
Right.
But it's all, man, every scar tells a story, and I'm covered with them, and I love it.
Definitely have the hills and valleys. So you are a vision expert, I believe. And I want to hear kind of how that came to be and kind of how it all works and how you really think about it. So where do you want to begin?
Yeah. When I was first starting as a speaker, my coach at the time asked me if I'd ever heard of The Secret, which had just come out early 2000s. It talked about law of attraction. It talked about, being magnetic and finding success out there. It gave a really good broad brush, but for me, it missed the point in a couple of ways. They actually had a genie in a magic lamp saying, "Your wish is my command," which I personally don't believe that. It's great to want things, but I believe we got to meet the universe halfway. You can wish for something, but then get off your butt and make it happen. So that's a big part of what I do. Comes down to 3 phrases: see it, be it, do it. See what you want, know what your goals look like, even feel like, sound like, and smell like, and then become the person you're going to need to be able to recognize the opportunities to get there. If you have to learn a skill, or if you have to meet some other people, have people as part of your team to do that, and then do it. Take the action necessary to meet it halfway. Don't just wish for something, put your feet up on the coffee table and stuff your face in a bag of Doritos and wait for your goals to knock on your door, because that's not going to happen.
Right.
It's like we recently had those huge lotteries. It happens a couple times a year. People are saying, "Oh, I want to win $1 million. How many tickets did you buy?" "Oh, none. I never win." You never win because you don't buy a ticket. You got to get off your butt and go to the store to actually buy a ticket to have a chance to win.
Right.
All that. So I brought that into visualization, and I really dig down deep with people. What do you want? Why do you want it? That's the most important question you can ask yourself.
Yeah.
And what does it look like? I've got a client last week I was on the phone with, and she's part of a company that I've worked with now for 11 years. So they build their boards, and I coach them through, 9 areas of their life. What do they want in each one? She wanted to buy her husband a new truck this year. So she found a picture of a truck in a magazine. I said, "Is that the truck you want?" She goes, "No, but it's a new truck." I said, "Well, tell you what, here's your homework this week. Go to a dealership on a day that it's closed, so you don't hear the sharks circling, trying to come and get you. Find a truck that just makes him smile the most and have him sit in front of it with that mean monster grill right up behind his head." I said, "Take his picture in front of the truck he wants, put that on your board instead, and see if it feels different." And she reached out to me 2 days later. She goes, "We've created a monster. He's asked me since the day you mentioned it, when are we going to find my truck?" So she's plugged in, he's plugged in. They're both super excited about it. So when you're connected, it brings that extra level of energy, attachment, willingness to do the work. It's not just an arts and crafts project like too many people are teaching it. I try to dig down deep and hit emotion with everything that people want to create. And that works for personally, as well as I work with corporate teams.
Ooh.
So that when people walk through the door every day, they know why they're walking through the door. And it's not this big bloated, 27 points in Scrabble word collection on the wall of fancy phrases. It's, why are you here? Or, I got one client that's actually going to do that this year. What's that? That's our mission statement. Well, it's a bunch of pictures. Yeah, it's what's most important to every single person who walks in here every day. That's why they're working hard to help you.
Yeah.
And the client went, "Ooh." That's different. So that's the approach I take. That's the way I teach these things.
So you said a couple really interesting things. I guess the first one that comes to mind is you said when you're connected, everything seems to fall into place. So let's talk about how do you get connected? How do you find that vibration or that feeling or that vision? How do you get as connected as possible so that it actually comes to fruition?
First off, shut off everything electronic. I mean, we're bombarded all day long by the buzz, the vibrate, the ring, the beep, the everything, the tones, all of that stuff. And it's an addiction like anything else. I mean, I'm hyper addicted. I feel my phone ringing when it's not even on. I think what we need to
Totally.
do is just take a pen and paper and go somewhere quiet and just sit and think, in all the major areas of your life, your career, your finances, your physical health, the emotions you want to feel most often, your relationships, your spirituality, if your faith is important to you, your ethics and morals and integrity. Are you operating in such a way that you're actually happy about the way you do things? Sit and think of all these things and just blast out ideas, not just things you want to have, but ways you want to be, and just start to define the ultimate version of yourself. Not everybody's happy with who they are right now, but you have to know where you are now to be able to get somewhere better. It's kind of like having the point A, point B in a GPS. And I just tell people, I said, look, just let it rip. Just go wild like it's the greatest letter in the world to Santa Claus. And when you go back through it, see which things really resonate for you. And just say a year in advance. I mean, don't be one of those people that today you're going to plan what you're going to be like 20 years from now, because you're probably going to give up 20 minutes from now when the first thing seems scary. And if you got 3 or 4 different ideas and you go, well, I don't know which one I want. I created a little exercise that I used that I now teach other people. I said, go to the mirror, read them off one at a time. The one that makes you smile the most, that's the one you start with. And then figure out what it would look like for you, and go online, or if you have magazines laying around, or if it's more of a word versus a picture, create your own hashtag, your own little mantra.
Yeah.
And start gathering those, and then keep them in a place where you can see them on a regular basis. And also look at it and take at least one step per day towards just one picture. And you're going to start to see momentum. It's like an old wooden roller coaster that just goes click, 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 click. You have to do every single click to get from the bottom to the top. You can't cheat it. You can't steal your way up there. You can't sneak around. You've got to do every single step to get there. And the sooner you understand that, the less you're going to be looking for hacks, and the more you're just going to do the work to get there.
I love that you said, like, because there's multiple opportunities and I'm somebody who just is like doing everything. So pick one goal and then you think about which one, and then you decide like which one makes you smile the most. Is that what you kind of tell your people?
Yeah. If you've got like 2 or 3 different in a certain category, because I'll even ask people, hey, with regard to material things, what's something you want to have this year? I want a new car. What car do you want? I don't know. There's like 4 of them I would want.
Yeah.
So when it's kind of in that competing area, then you see which one makes you smile the most, which one you're most connected to. And that works for anything, in your relationships. I mean, my wife, Tina, and I've been together 14 years. When it comes to relationship, one of the most important things to me is we cook dinner at least 4 nights a week together. So I have a picture of our kitchen, because we're in there, we're laughing at least 3, 4 nights a week when I'm not on calls or interviews. Every morning, the first thing, when whoever's alarm goes off first, our feet find each other under the covers. We just touch feet. So, and these other people are all this, this whole romantic, mountaintop and all this and that. I say, hey, you know what, dude, we touch feet. It's free.
I don't know, man. My girlfriend's got some pretty cold feet, so
Yeah.
I can't do that.
We'll get her some battery operated socks for her birthday. But see, it's the practical, real stuff. You've seen them and I've seen them, the motivational gurus who are out there talking about success. And what are they doing? They're crouched down next to a Lamborghini with a mansion in the background and a yacht behind them moored to the deck. All this stuff is rented. You and I know this. And they talk about that as success.
Yeah.
And I tell people, tap into emotionally what you're connected to. What would make you happy?
Yeah.
I don't want any of that stuff. I love our home. We have a very nice home. I'm down in my recording studio that I built. And all of these things that I wanted years ago, I have now. And it's not luck. It's putting myself in the right place at the right time, in the right frame of mind, having the guts to take some steps when I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Believe me, I've been on stages I had no business being on. I got blinded by a paycheck and said, oh, hell, I could talk to these people. I was wrong a couple times.
Oh, no.
But see, now I know who my audience is. I know who my connections are. I know the radio shows I want to be on. Come on. This is why you and I are having a conversation. I listened to your
Yeah.
show and I said, I would love to talk to this guy.
Right
He's
on,
got
man.
great energy and I dig his style. So, hey, I reached out and here we are.
Yeah. So, um, why do you think vision boards are the way to go? Like, as opposed to like all the other things that deal with success? Like, what is the vision boards or the visualizing? Like, why is that your key to helping other people?
What I try to do is get people to tie as many emotions as they can into their boards. And
Mm,
sight vision is a really good one.
yeah.
The sense of smell is actually our strongest of all the senses. It really connects us to experiences and memories and reality in a lot of
Wow.
ways. So I've got people with little scratch and sniff things on their boards. Or, matter of fact, one of my clients who works for a big company, the one I've been working with for 11 years, one of her goals is by the time she's 50 years old, she wants to live in Hawaii. And it's 50th state by 50, I think is her hashtag that she uses. Well, I wanted to help her make it more real. I mean, she even signed up. She just got accepted into a college in Hawaii to take online learning courses from Rhode Island
Yeah.
because she's creating the experience of Hawaii for herself. I went online and I found a candle that is a blend of some of the strongest scents, floral and beach from Hawaii.
Uh,
And she bought the candle and she just burns it a couple times a week while she's thinking about that and meditating and taking notes and thinking of her actions for that week. So it's to try to tie in as many senses as possible. I sent her a link to a YouTube video, which is just 2 hours of little waves landing on a beach in Hawaii with a palm tree and a sunset
yeah.
in the background. So it's all part of attacking as many of our senses as possible and not just wishing for things because we know how long those stay with us. Some shiny object or a squirrel comes by and it's gone. This is a more permanent reminder of everything we told ourselves that we wanted.
Yeah, I love it. I was talking to this other coach recently, and what he does is he makes them like totally understand what they want to attain, and then he makes them give them like a couple $100, and then if they don't take a step towards their new goal, then their money goes to somebody else. So that's how he's holding everybody accountable, and I just thought that was great. So it's like a big pot of everybody's
Oh,
money, so that if
wow.
if you don't take the step towards your vision today, and somebody else does, a little bit goes to that person, because people
Yep.
are like it's great to tell people like it's like the carrot and the stick kind of. People are more motivated by fear, more motivated by things than really motivated by going forward and being healthy and doing the right thing. So I thought that was just kind of a funny way to do it, to hold people accountable.
Yeah, that's interesting. Boy, I would not want to be the guy who finally does something and the pot is empty.
I know.
So that's interesting. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. But I've gone down this rabbit hole quite a bit, and I really like the idea of all the senses. So do you think, like, we're going to get a little woo woo here, but
Mhm.
so when we're thinking about visualizing things, like what happens is I feel like we get off that vibration, like something will derail us, a bad night's sleep, somebody will piss you off. And do you think that the visualizing and the way that we manifest and the way that we really bring things to us is holding that vibration, holding those senses, holding that picture and those feelings in our mind for as long as possible until they come to us? Or is it just like, I mean, what do you think? Do you have a theory on that?
I think it's a really good lifeline. And
Mm,
it's a really good strong rope. You could be hanging over a cliff, but if you still have that hope, that goal, that dream, that intention, that's still holding you to, when I can just climb back up and get on that cliff in solid footing, I can go for it again. And I believe tying in all the senses strengthens it in such a way that even as much as the world tries to push us around some days, or with everything that went wrong in 2020, at the end of the year, people were like, 3 words to describe your year. And I saw 20 different variations of wicked crap storm. And I added mine. It said, learned new ways
mm,
because I have my business goals for speaking. Now I had to shift it over to virtual.
yeah.
Well, what 2020 also did was give me a new business model to deliver the Vision Board Mastery Program to corporate audiences. I never would have thought of it
Yeah.
without all of that happening, to the point where I couldn't get on a plane and fly somewhere and speak. My business mentor, my coaches, and I sat down and they said, well, what if you did this and had this? And I said, oh man, that is so much better than what I had before. And so now I'm doing this virtually with more clients, bigger clients, and it's allowing me to get to my goal without exhausting myself by traveling all over the place to deliver it.
Yeah, totally.
So as many cliffs as it felt like we fell off in 2020, the desire to get it out there to corporate audiences, we just have to find a different way. I mean, Corona and everything else was like a huge clump of trees falling across your path.
Right.
You still want that really badass view from the top of the mountain. So you got to go figure out another way to get there. And you might meet some different cool people along the way and think of things a different way than you would have before. And if you're really tied, deeply connected emotionally to why you want what you want, you're going to bust out that chainsaw and you're just going to go through anything to get there.
Yeah, I love it. The picture that I'm getting in my mind is like you're throwing your dreams of exactly what you want to be out there in the future, and then you're just not letting anything get in your way to get there, pretty much. And that's what the visualizing, that's what the thing really helps.
Yeah.
I'd kind of like a little peek into your world. What's it like doing this to big corporations? What's that like?
It's interesting because
Yeah.
I always have to have that conversation up front. Like, look, you're gonna feel weird. This may be new to a lot of people,
Yeah.
but of course, being who I am and how I am and the way I deliver myself, we take care of that right up front, even in advance before the employees even meet me. I'll shoot a video that I'll share with the HR director or whoever my contact is, the team leader, the manager. And I'll say, hey, my name is Steve Gamlin. Here's what I do. Here's how I do it. And I've been invited to be a part of your team. Here's the goal that I have. I want you to be more connected every time you walk through the door, every day you get up and you're working virtually from home, of why you do this. And this is the whole point of what we do. And yeah, it's going to feel weird at first if you've never been into personal development, but I promise you, I'll make it enjoyable. I'll make it fun. And you will see why I do what I do, and it can help you to apply it to what you do. And I found that icebreaker makes a big difference, because I've had even, big, guys in power suits giggling, telling me stories of their goals, after only half an hour together. One guy, very successful, he had a picture of, I think it was an old MG car, like a little convertible from the 60s. And him and his college buddies drove an entire summer all over the country in it. And he said, man, I've worked hard all these years. I can take the time. He goes, I want to feel that again. And he was like a little kid telling me this, and he was in his 50s. Yeah. And the people near him looked at him like, we never see him like that giggly happy. I mean, he was just joyfully telling me that story. And here I am. That was 8 years ago, and I'm still talking about it with a big smile. So that's how I explain what I do with people. I don't do it for them. I do it with them.
Yeah.
And those little moments and stories just keep me going.
That's awesome. So how do we build these vision boards? You said you take the arts and crafts out of it, but it seems pretty arts and craftsy. How do you deal with it?
It still sounds arts and craftsy. I always tell people, I said, look, I got my own t-shirt line that says on the back, friends don't let friends attend vision board parties. Because when the brochure for the vision board event starts off with, we're going to have wine, cheese, crackers, scissors, and glue sticks. Like, first off, wine and scissors are a really bad combination, unless you want to use the glue stick to put your eyebrow back on. But it's really simple. Actually, I've got one of them here. Here's one of my older boards. I'll hold it up there just so people can see. So I usually start off with just a poster board, like, even 14 by 17 is a pretty standard size you can get at like a Staples or an office supply store. And when I go through and just think of all the different areas of my life that I mentioned earlier, and think of what one of my goals is for each one of those, like how much do I want to weigh at the end of the year? What are some of the good foods I want to eat? How much money do I want to make? How many new clients? What are my goals for my relationship with my wife, Tina? And, do we want to have date night once a week? And all of these things. And then just create or find words and pictures to represent, and then figure out which one is the most important. Start in the center. Now, for me, it's me and my wife, Tina. Number one, always in the center. Now, to be able to do what we want to do in our lives and maybe trips or whatever, my business goals usually come next, and my physical health goals and the emotions I want to feel most often. I want to be happy. I want to be laughing every day. I want to feel true love every day. And it builds out from there. So it eventually tells a complete story of what I want all these parts of my life to look like, feel like, sound like, be like. And it just goes from there. And then what I recommend to people, because I follow up with all my clients, how's your board coming? It's done. Where is it? It's in the closet. Why? Well, I'm afraid for anybody to see my goals, or I'm embarrassed by it, or isn't it like, you put it out there and then the universe comes? I go, no, it's not set it and forget it. You are not a roast chicken.
Yeah.
This is just, it's your map. So I encourage people to keep it where they can see it every day. And if you're worried about what other people think, just keep it in, on the bureau next to your bed. Or I got one client that hung hers up next to her bathroom mirror, and she came to another event. She came as a repeat. And I said, Lisa, where do you keep your vision board? She goes, my bathroom. And everybody started to laugh. I said, why do you keep it there? She goes, hey, I'm there every day.
Yeah.
So when she's doing her hair and makeup in the morning, it's right next to her mirror, and she just looks at it and she gets hopeful. And she thinks of, it's a great time. She's kind of captive audience. She says, I just think of what one step I can take toward one picture that day, and it puts me in a good mood. And then I go out and I start making calls and grow my business so I can do all these other things. And what I also teach people is take a picture of it, make it the wallpaper on your phone or any of your electronic devices, laptop, tablet, computer. Print out a picture, put it in the visor of your car. If you're a person who travels a lot for work, every time you go into a meeting, unfold it, look at it, and just say, look, what I'm about to do here in business today, this next appointment is going to contribute somehow to this board. Let me connect to that and remember how important this is. So I give it 100% every day. And that's, it's just keeping it top of mind and staying connected. That's the most important part, because otherwise we just get disposable and blown around by the wind. And I mean, what kind of life is that? I want more than that. I'm not saying it's bad. I just want more than that. And I've been, my first couple boards 15 years ago were just atrociously bad. I made two because I was broke at the time. And I'm like, I want all this stuff. This is before I knew anything about the other, parts of the life. I just basically wrote a letter to Santa Claus. It failed. The only thing on there that actually did manifest was I wanted to build my own recording studio. I'm now in my second one. Nice. First one was at my dad's house. He passed away a couple of years ago. And so I built this one actually right as he was passing away. I just started building this with all the tools that we had used together my entire life and all the knowledge he gave me of carpentry and construction. So it was just such a perfect moment to take everything life had taught me and understand that when you work really hard for something, you pick up skills along the way. And even though your mentor is now gone, you can do it if you were paying attention. And he's here every day with me. My favorite picture of us is right over there on my desk. So he's a big part of my speaking as a supporter and a cheerer on, even if he never understood what it was I did. He'd say, so you stand up in front of people and get them excited and they pay you? I said, yeah. He goes, well, that's a good gig. I go, remember how many years I was living at your house broke, doing it for free? I said, now I get paid. So he was always cool with that. But see, it's a journey. It's just, it's ongoing all the time. We've never arrived, really. And if you look at it that way, you're always trying for something else.
Yeah. I love that. So tell us all a little bit about the Motivational Firewood Guy. How did that come to be your title, or what is that?
That came out of a conversation at my very first National Speakers Association in New England meeting about 13 years ago. Somebody said, well, if you want to be a speaker, you have to join the National Speakers Association. So I did. And I found out they had meetings down near Boston. So I drove down, and I've got the blue name tag of shame, new guy, first timer. And a guy says, hey, Steve, hey, your first time here. Welcome. My name is Don. And so what do you do? I said, well, I'm a motivational speaker. He goes, well, you just narrowed it down to about 90% of us. What sets you apart? I said, I want to inspire people. And he goes, we're still at 90%. What do you want to do? And his kid glove in me. I mean, he could not have been more gracious and patient with me. Yeah. And because I was brand new. So I'm just all, rah, rah, rah. And finally, I said, well, look, I understand I can't change anyone's life, but if someone hears me speak, like if they have a goal, a little spark of something in their heart, but they don't know what to do, I said, I guess the stories that I share and the examples and the lessons I teach are kind of like motivational firewood. So if they take it and apply it to the spark, they can make fire. And then he goes, do you know anything about trademarks? I'm like, not a clue. He goes, go look it up. He goes, that motivational firewood thing. He goes, that's unique. That's really cool and different. The way you just explained it, he goes, hell, I'd come see you now. And it was the first person that actually helped me to believe that I could do something different and not just be part of the rah, 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 buy my stuff crowd.
Yeah.
And I shelled out like $1,200 and I've owned the trademark ever since.
So now you have to be the firewood.
I mean, I'm known as the motivational firewood guy. And people hear that and they know it's me. And I love that. And I'm so appreciative.
That's good.
That he approached me that day in my little sad blue name tag. I am new. Yeah. I don't have a clue what I'm doing here, but my name's Steve. See, and that conversation, I mean, it changed my career. It gave me a good kick early on, and to live up to that all the time. And you can't half-ass it when you're on stage. When you give yourself that name, you got to bring the fire every single day. not just on stage, but across social media. I'm very careful what I do out there, and I got to represent my brand every day.
Got to bring the fire. I love it.
Yeah.
What other tips do you have for, ambitious speakers, I guess?
Figure out what sets you apart, and not just the flash in the fire or the catchy little things that a lot of people do. What are people telling you at the end of your presentations, or a month later, a year later, 5 years later? What are you hearing back from people that the impact was that you had on their lives? And I had a guy come up to me in a grocery store a number of years ago, walked past me, and he turns around and goes, "Hey man, you're that speaker, right?" "Yes, sir, I'm a speaker." He goes, I said, "Where'd you see me?" He says, and he named the town in Massachusetts. And I said, "Okay." I said, "I remember that. It was an unemployment networking group. There's about 85 of you in the room." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I was there 3 times." He says, "Yep." So what do you remember? And he told me the story I told, the picture that was on the screen at the time, and the lesson behind it. And then he told me a week later, I had a job interview. I used that lesson. I looked him right in the eye and had a great conversation and stayed engaged. And I said, "And?" He goes, "Oh, hell, I got the job." And he held his hand out. He goes, "I'm just so happy I got a chance to run into you and say thank you for that."
Awesome.
So if you're a speaker or interested in becoming a speaker, think about long-term impact for the people you're speaking with. Don't brag on how many standing ovations you've gotten, because if that's your goal, you might be in it for the wrong reason.
Yeah. That's so good.
I've gotten 1 standing ovation in my career, and I cheated to get it to win $5 off a friend.
Just got in there and just started raising your hands and yelling at them.
Nope, didn't even need to. Right near the end, because
Yeah.
part of it, that was actually a speech called "Some Days Your Phoenix Rides a Pogo Stick." And I was telling people about your tail feathers. I said, we're all born with tail feathers, and they're beautiful and they're cool and they make us unique. I said, but sometimes you do things in life that causes you to fall in the fire and your tail feathers burn off and you sit in the flames. I said, but when you come up out of the flames, they grow back. And when they grow back stronger because you have experience. And they grow back more beautiful because now you know how to take care of them. So I said, would y'all do me a big favor? Would y'all please stand up? So look over your right shoulder, look over your left shoulder. Now look down at your butt. How your tail feathers doing? Thank you very much. My name is Steve Gamlin. And they all start clapping while they're standing. And I look in the front row, and there's my friend just giving me the finger because I just won $5. Because I bet her I would get a standing ovation that day. And,
that's awesome.
So, if you're looking for rah-rah and cheers and just hearing your name screamed and all that and applause, for me, that's not the reason to become a speaker. Become a speaker because you want to have impact on people and you want to make their lives better. Yeah. And it will make yours better if you do it right.
I like that, man. I'm going to have to put on my vision board something that's going to change people's lives. Make it happen. Yeah. Yeah. How do you pick
having these conversations? I mean, just inviting me to be here today. Somebody who may not have heard of either of us yet, is going to stumble across it and listen to it and say, they're talking to me.
I'll make sure they do.
And that's a beautiful thing. And your generosity of having me on here made it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. How do you really pick your message, do you think, before you go on stage and you speak to a crowd? What is your tips on that?
Know your audience. And know the language that's okay to share with them and be appropriate. Some people think because I'm, a former comedian that I come in and tell off-color jokes. Never. I know my audience. Most importantly, I know who I am and I know my style. And whether I'm writing or speaking or on a radio show or recording or doing a YouTube for my video channel, I'm always the same person. And somebody asked me recently, said, well, who are you? I said, well, here's how it works. And my mom loves this one. I said, Plato and Socrates were philosophical. Shakespeare could be comedic or tragic. I said, I'm the guy who writes things like, don't let people fart in your elevator. Meaning don't let toxic people ruin your energy.
Yeah.
I said, that's who I'm a blue collar raised, integrity, ethical, blue collar valued guy. And I speak a common language. I speak words that people can understand. I don't use anything big and fancy. I say it straight and I say it in such a way that people remember it because I'll craft a story around it. And if I can make it funny, if at all possible, I will do that every time so that you remember the lesson. I'm just a regular everyday guy who gets to do something really cool that makes me happy. And I built a business around it and it helps other people. And that's pretty much how I describe myself.
I love it, man.
Johnny Fever with a motivational message, because that's the vibe I still have behind me. We started a nonprofit a number of years ago, and somebody said, you got to give it a name. What do you want to be in this world? I said, a beach bum.
A beach
because I
bum.
just learned how to surf and I just want to be a beach bum. Beach bums are just laid back. They're cool with everything.
Yeah,
So
man.
we just found out actually the other day, we got approval from the IRS. We are now an official 501c3 beach bum philanthropy. So it's got that
Nice.
cool acts of kindness, just cruising along vibe.
Yeah.
And people say, well, you got to be all this. I'm like, nah. I'm Johnny Fever with a give it, an acts of kindness mission.
Yeah.
I said, man, we're just cool vibing with this. And it's just an extension of who we all are. My family and friends are all part of this.
Yeah. Well, I think authenticity is the new currency. We're tired of all the rah fake people. So beach bums and just people that are genuinely giving and just nice. They're the future, and people are really looking for that right now, I think.
Yeah. Man, you just nailed it. Somebody asked me, her name is Karma Spence, and she's a speaker and an author. About 10 years ago, she posted something on social media. She goes, in a speaker's group, she says, what is your superpower as a speaker? And I typed back in all caps, authenticity. Within a minute of her posting it, she sends me a message. Hey, can I interview you for my upcoming book? I love your answer.
Nice.
Like, at the time, man, I'm nobody. Nobody knows who I am outside of New England. And here's this person. I wound up in her book. I was on her radio show. And she says, Steve was the first guy to say authenticity. So here he is. And I've just tried to still be that same person. I mean, I have childlike wonder about the world every day. Simple things fascinate me. I love sunrises and sunsets, and I love watching people commit acts of kindness. I like making people smile behind their masks because you can still see their eyes twinkle up. When everybody else is being rude to the people at the deli counter, I go in every week and on purpose, I will make them laugh and leave in as many situations as I can better than I found them.
Oh, I love that, man. That's awesome. Well, why don't you tell everybody kind of the best places to reach you and to learn more about you on social media and the internet?
Yeah, nice and easy. If you go to motivationalfirewood.com, that's where all my stuff is. And if anybody has questions or comments, there's a place on there to just set up a free conversation because I love doing those.
Yeah, it's so awesome, man. And then if anybody wants to do the visionary stuff too, is that the same website?
Yep. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's all there as well. And we actually just put the finishing touches recently for people that have never heard of visualization or a lot of any of that. There's a half-hour masterclass, got a little webinar there that gives the basics of it all and how it all works. And the feedback has been really good on that. And again, not all the stuff that we plan actually happens. I sat here for 7 hours one day on camera, sweating and exhausted under the hot lights. And I got up at 5:30 the next day to produce the new webinar. Half the footage was out of focus and I couldn't use it. And so I said a few bad words that I will not say right now on your radio show. But then I said, well, wait a second. I took the script and I read it into my recording studio computer and then crafted using pictures and video and movement, a visual narrative of everything I was saying. And it's 10 times better than it would have been had it just been me sitting on a camera talking. So tree falls across, you keep plowing through. I wanted to get that thing done. And it actually turned out better because I screwed it up royally because I forgot to hit the focus button during session number 2.
Yeah. So many things have been lost to focus or is out of sound.
Oh yeah.
What's the UK radio thing that you're doing?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's called Inspire Radio. It launched in January of 2020 over in England by this guy Steve Twynham, who's been a radio guy over there forever. And he reached out to me in 2014. He says, "Hey, I love your stuff on LinkedIn. I think you're positive and you're real. Can I interview you on my radio show?" So we did. It was wonderful. And in fall of 2019, he reached out. He says, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yeah." And I checked the dates. I said, "Wow, 5 years." He goes, "Do you remember what we talked about after the show?" I said, "Steve, I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. Refresh my memory." And he says, "Well, I wanted to have a radio station dedicated." And then I remembered. I said, "Positive messages and positive stuff." And he says, "Yeah." I said, "Wow, great." He says, "It's launching in January 2020. Do you want your own show? You're the only person in America we're asking."
That's incredible.
In January of this year, we celebrated a full year. I have 3 episodes per week.
Wow.
Of the Motivational Firewood Hour. And apparently over there, they love our accents because we're on the monthly call. I said, "Oh my gosh," I said, "your accents are amazing." And one of them goes, "Our accents are boring. We love your accent." I mean, I'm an hour north of Boston. I'm thinking, I have an accent.
Yeah.
I don't have a Boston accent,
Right.
but people always think that. They're going, tell me to park my car. I don't speak like that.
Hop in the
I used
trolley.
to. Yes, yes. I'm boarding the trolley here.
Oh man,
But
you're
they're
famous across the pond.
amazing. Yeah. And we've gone on word of mouth alone from that start. In 1 year, we now have listeners in 40 countries around the world, like 5,000 unique listeners a month. And I get to be a part of it because of a seed planted 6 years prior by saying yes to an interview opportunity. So,
Nice.
my vision was to be heard all around the world. And because I said yes to that, all these other things are happening. So right now my voice is being heard all around the world.
Well, that's so
And
awesome, man.
I'm so grateful every day. Anytime I get to be here behind this microphone,
Yeah.
I love it because I never know. First off, I love doing these. I love these conversations, but I never know where it's going to go. And that's part of the beauty of it.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying getting to interview amazing people like yourself and just learn and just keep talking and spreading the message. It's fantastic. So I really am just trying to help all the listeners just become successful and healthy and awesome. Is there any other success tips that you have for the listeners that we didn't talk about on the show that you think like has really led to your success?
Yeah, actually, it's from one of my grandfathers. Both grandfathers were amazing people, very different, but one of my grandfathers lived a lesson, never even said the words because it was such a simple family base, just a loving, he was my cute little old man. He always left at least one situation a day better than he found it. And if he drove past your house, he'd be like, oh no, one of the pickets on Robert's fence is broken. He'd go home, get his stubby little pencil, put it on his ear, his tape measure, go measure it, go home, make another picket, go back and put it on your fence and fix your fence, even if you weren't home. And you would never know that Al Dion had been there. And by watching him for as many years as I had him in my life, I learned that wherever I am, if I just look around, I have an opportunity to leave something better than I found it, whether it's rescuing a shopping cart from the parking lot so it doesn't dent somebody's car. I call that shopping cart rodeo. Or making somebody smile, or holding a door for somebody, or paying a compliment to somebody that might look a little bit down. And I've seen people looking sad at the store, and I'll just look at them and I go, okay, you are wearing the coolest hat I've seen all day. I could never pull that off. Just saying. And I walk away. And I see them 2 aisles later and they look at me and they smile. I'm like, left it better than I found it. So little things like that from my grandfather, just great wisdom he had in a simple little old man's life. And I miss him so much, but very grateful for the gifts that he gave me like that.
Oh man, we've definitely set a fire under me, man. It's incredible. I really thank you very much for coming on the show, and I want to thank everybody for listening and investing their time today. I think everybody can walk away and just have a lot of golden nuggets, and hopefully everybody's ready to make a vision board. I think that's the best thing. But I think that's all the time we have today. So Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast, truly. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening. Take care.